all, Scott here. Bullshit. I don't need video game controllers. I have all the controllers I need right here. Yeah, I failed anatomy. You guys want to see what a Nintendo fan committing adultery looks like? Yeah, look it, I lived it. The 7th generation of video game consoles, where the Xbox 360 reigns supreme if you don't count all other consoles. 3rd place after being in first since it came out before the other two, 2nd after the Wii became a jock, and 3rd after the PlayStation 3 gained a lot more momentum in its later years. I mean, come on, it had all these games come out right before the PlayStation 4 took over. The Xbox 360 before the Xbox One, like, oh wow, Gears of War Judgment came out. It did? Well, the Xbox 360 ended up being the lowest selling of the three. For a while there, it was head of the class. I mean, the PlayStation 3 was kind of just bleeding the first couple years on the market. The 360 had a handful of must-have titles and was nearly half the price of a PS3. And on top of that, this era was when online multiplayer was really starting to become a thing, so people were not only buying 360s because they were cheaper and for Gears of War and Halo 3, they were buying them so they could play online with their friends who also had 360s. However, while these two consoles were duking it out, another one in the distance was taking advantage of uncles everywhere. The Wii was cool, right? You could swing the Wii remote and the game would respond accordingly sometimes. The Wii was the best-selling console that generation, asterisk. Sure, it sold over 100 million consoles, but did it though? A lot of those were sold to your uncle who played it for a couple of weeks and never played it again. Sure, you sold the console, but is rotting in the entertainment center really a life worth living? Regardless, it cornered the casual market. People who didn't normally play video games were attracted to the Wii due to its simplicity, motion controls, and not Wii music. Like, look at this, I can't hold this, it has prongs. What are these? Why are there two of them? The Wii remote was no nonsense, easy to understand. You hold it like a TV remote and you can just shake it around for most games. You didn't have to think about what to do to make the little man on screen swing the tennis racket, you just swung the remote like a tennis racket. As good as standard controllers are, there's a reason mom can't look them straight in the eye. The motion control, simplicity, and fun factor of Wii Sports really helped the Wii fly off the shelves like crazy. Not only was the technology up to par with the standards of neat at the time, but it was fun and easy to grasp for most people. So that's just the thing, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were catering to people who wanted to play hardcore AAA games, but it was hard to overlook just how successful the Wii was doing catering to everybody else. The motion control gimmick worked for Nintendo. It got non-gamers to become real gamers, but you wanna know what really kept the Wii remote away from greatness? The Wii remote. Fucking ew, I don't wanna hold something and swing my arms around, I just wanna swing my arms around. That's where Microsoft got us. Introducing Kinect for Xbox 360. See, this was a fun look into the future of humanity. It was so technologically advanced, and just like the future of humanity, I can see death in this. The Kinect was Microsoft's answer to not only trying to definitively beat the PlayStation 3, but also take on Nintendo as well. The Wii was in a league of its own. It was fair to say these two things weren't directly competing, but Microsoft wanted a piece of that pie. So instead of a motion controller, why not a camera that tracks your motions? That led to an admittedly pretty smart marketing angle. When I grow up, I want to be the controller. I mean, they were kicking Nintendo down with this whole "you are the controller, no controller required" shtick. It only made consumers think that using controllers for motion control was a nuisance and that no controller required was the way of the future. They were solving a problem that not a ton of people really had with the Wii. Sure, back in the day, the thought of the Wii remote swap and spit with your TV was terrifying, but did anybody really go, yes, motion controls, no, I have to hold that? Kinect was a smart move by Microsoft. It made a lot of Wii owners look over with envy. They were all like, oh wow, you don't need a controller now? It's like having enough of pencil bullshit, so you just use speech-to-text apps on your computer. It works 40% of the time, but hey, it's way more technologically advanced than pencil bullshit. However, to truly understand what the hell, we must go all the way back to when the hell. Project Natal. Sure. This was revealed at E3 2009, a camera accessory for the Xbox 360 that tracked your whole body and could do some pretty interesting stuff. You could look at the bottom of an Xbox avatar's shoe. Wha-bam! There it is. That was the first use of Kinect they demoed. And Steven Spielberg supports it? They got Steven Spielberg? Oh, yes, of course I'll buy your stupid shitty video game camera. Yeah, Steven Spielberg, ever heard of him? Director, writer, Kinect advocator. To be fair, Spielberg made some good points in his appearance here. He mentioned how games are intimidating to a lot of people. You can't just expect anybody to pick up a controller and start playing a game in the same way somebody can just sit down and watch a movie. Project Natal would just require people to move their bodies in front of the screen to control a game in very intuitive ways. There'd be nothing to learn, no hurdles to overcome, overcome, no nunchuck to plug in. It can do anything. It can splash paint, hit balls, have meaningful conversations with artificial intelligence with Project Milo. I mean, yeah, that's impressive and also bullshit. Yeah, this was all about having an actual conversation with artificial intelligence, and the way they showed it off just screamed fake, or at least within an extremely controlled environment to me. It's 2019, they still haven't nailed sex bots, and I'm expected to believe this from 2009? Regardless, Project Natal showed a lot of promise. It was like the iToy for the PlayStation 2, but with a ton more tech crammed into it. The iToy was pretty much just a webcam. Natal had 3 sensors on the front, it projected infrared lights onto the user to track them, it could sense depth, gestures, it had facial recognition, voice recognition. This thing was jam-packed with features and technology. Project Natal had potential, and it was all building up to its official unveiling 1 year later at E3 2010. Project Natal was officially named Kinect for Xbox 360. I like the name. I will stand by the opinion that Microsoft has a terrible history of naming products, and Kinect was one of their best ones. But this was it. This was where Microsoft was going to show off the future of gaming, what their new accessory was seriously capable of, what set it apart from the Wii. I am a big supporter of not this. E3 2010 was where a lot of people grew a strong distaste towards the Kinect. Only the first 30 minutes of their hour-and-a-half long show were dedicated to games people actually cared about, and then the last hour was ugh, eek, and gross. The Kinect ended up releasing later that year on November 4th, 2010 for $150 here in North America. You could use it on the original model of the 360, but you needed a separate power adapter for it. The second and third iterations of the console were more Kinect friendly. All you had to do was plug the Kinect in and you were good to go. I personally got a Kinect alongside a 360 for Christmas in 2011. You see, if you were an 8th grader and only had a Wii, you were a fucking pussy. That's why I wanted either an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, because I wasn't a fucking pussy, I swear. I ended up choosing a 360 because I played around with the Kinect at a friend's house a couple months prior, and that completely sold me on it. So I got a 4GB Xbox 360 Kinect bundle that came with Kinect Adventures. I also got GoldenEye 007 Reloaded, Dance Central, and U-Star 2, because nothing screams I'm not a fucking pussy like U-Star 2. Yeah, I know the Kinect has a crazy bad rep. A lot of people have negative opinions of this thing because of how much Microsoft prioritized it during the latter half of the Xbox 360's life. It felt like they were pushing the hardcore audience off to the side while focusing too much on Kinect and the casual market, all while those same casual consumers who bought a Wii and later a Kinect, yeah, they weren't long-term fans. They bought a Kinect, had their fun with it, and then moved on. Now, I didn't have a one-night stand with this thing. I played it, but I don't have a lot of massive memories of it all. The Kinect I never thought too highly of. I always felt like the concept had a lot of potential, though. I still feel like the concept has a lot of potential. I feel like too many people are unwilling to accept new and innovative ways of controlling video games. Too many people just assume that, yep, this is it. This is how all video games should be controlled till the end of time. I mean, yeah, that's the definitive way to play most modern games, but being unwilling to change the input method for a lot of games means we won't get as many innovative experiences. Video games can be so much more than what the standard controller allows for, and if we don't accept stuff like this, then we won't get crazy experiences that we couldn't get with standard controllers. It's too bad this wasn't that good. So turning on the 360 with the Kinect plugged in, it has to boot up by nodding its head up and down. Yes, there is a god and they let this happen. It needs a sec to figure out the optimal viewing angle for your Kinect experience, and entering the menus, there I am. So I have to wave at the NSA to get Kinect to recognize me, and now I can move my hand around to pummel through some menus. Now, if the Kinect doesn't see you, well, it's time to tune the Kinect. Each Kinect comes with sleep paralysis. We use this card to calibrate the camera, and don't ask me, I don't know how. And there we are, from the chest up, I exist. We can use voice commands. All we have to do is say, Xbox. It starts listening, and we can do such things as ask it to search using Bing. It's really hard to use the Kinect after throwing it in the garbage, so we'll put it back for now. I mean, this works for the most part, but it's so slow. Tracking your hand, there's a bit of a delay, so everything feels like it's almost in slow motion, and you have to hold your hand over an option for a few seconds to select something. However, back when the Kinect originally came out, this was an effective way to make any casual gamer lose their mind. Like, yeah, it's a power trip controlling a menu like this, but every time I do this, I just end up going through withdrawal. So most Kinects came bundled with all reliable Kinect Adventures. So this was Microsoft obviously trying to pull a Nintendo. The Wii experienced tremendous success, and a lot of that was definitely because Wii Sports was bundled in. That game did an amazing job of showcasing how easy and fun it can be to use the Wii Remote. The sports were fast-paced and a joy to play through. Does Kinect Adventures reach that level of quality and fun? This guy's selling like 20 for $5. Kinect Adventures is fine enough as a freebie with the Kinect. It does the job, but it doesn't try to be anything more than that. The theme of Kinect Adventures is camping and space. 4 camp-themed minigames, 1 space-themed one. Let's start off with 20,000 leaks. You move your hand and feet around to plug up holes. I fucking dare you to imagine that without Kinect. River Rush, you move around to control a raft and jump up and down to go faster. Yes, I've lost all ambition. Rally Ball, you hit the balls to break stuff. It's okay. Reflex Ridge, squat a bunch to get through the obstacle course. This one's also okay. And finally we have Space Pop. That's Kinect Adventures. I felt like it met the quota for what a free minigame collection should be. It does the job, but it also doesn't at the same time. This is an incredibly boring representation of what the Kinect can do. So many of the minigames just feel like there's nothing here for people to get excited about. I still had an okay amount of fun playing this game, but not enough to warrant buying a Kinect or playing this ever again. Well, Microsoft knew Kinect Adventures alone wasn't gonna cut it. No. Alongside the launch of the Kinect, they put out a handful of other games under the Kinect moniker. We got Kinect Sports, Kinect Joyride, and Kinect Immels. Kinect Sports was actually developed by Rare. You know Rare. Used to work a lot with Nintendo Rare, got bought by Microsoft Rare, barely did anything noteworthy afterwards, and was forced to work on Kinect games Rare. That Rare, you know that Rare? Kinect Sports is a direct response to Wii Sports, and a pretty okay one, all things considered. This should have been the pack-in title instead of Kinect Adventures. That game was just... Kinect Sports is way more involved. It uses the Kinect in way more impressive ways due to just how active you have to be. But here's my problem with this type of game on the Kinect compared to on the Wii. Games like boxing and track and field feel really natural with Kinect. But then you have bowling and table tennis where you just have to act like you're holding objects. And it just doesn't feel right. Being the controller doesn't equate to it feeling natural to swing my arms around with nothing in them to play ping pong. With the Wii, I have a tangible controller in my hands. It feels much more natural when playing a game where you're holding a tangible item. Man, I've got tangibility on the mind tonight. And while we're on the topic, let's give Kinect Joyride a try. See, what you have to do here is pretend that you're holding a wheel and then start to play a shitty game, and that's how Kinect Joyride works. It just doesn't feel right. I constantly over or undershoot each turn. The split second of delay between my actions and what happens in the game doesn't help things at all. This is in no way immersive or natural feeling. Mario Kart Wii feels 10 times more natural because you're actually holding a wheel in your hands. Here, you're holding nothing, and it costs $150 to do so. Well, if a game called Kinect Joyride was a bust, what does that mean for Kinectimals? Microsoft really pushed this game with Kinect. I assume they thought this was going to be the next Nintendogs. I would love to see that timeline. I mean, this is the best looking game we've seen so far. We get to pick a Kinectimal and then teach it some tricks and play with some toys. They kind of move you through a small story and give you a bit of a minigame to play. I mean, it's fine, but it's not compelling, and you know when I pulled this game off the shelf, that's what I was looking for. It feels like a Kinect minigame collection disguised as a pet simulator. It doesn't even feel like this Kinectimal is mine, it just feels like I'm renting it. Anybody ever play the other 2 Sonic Rider games and go, what the f***? These aren't easy to pick up and play. They're weirdly complicated, so surely the Kinect version of this series must be better. Sonic Free Riders is consistently labeled as one of the worst Sonic games, mainly due to the controls. And the menus, people hate the menus. Many just have not gotten Free Riders to work well. From what I've played, I got it to function enough. You have to stand like you're on a hoverboard, but you have to do a ton of extra motions to use items and grab rings and wipe the screen off, and turning is so difficult sometimes. And then the menus don't even have labels. You have to scroll through each and every option to see what they are, and scrolling is a mess. Weird, right? This one wasn't good. Well, I saved the best for last. Dance Central. There isn't anything that special about this game. It's a dancing game. You dance along to the song, moves you have to perform come up, and you just have to dance as well as you can to get the best score possible. Again, nothing that special, but this is a game that Kinect truly does best. Dancing games on the Wii were a bit gimped. Games like Just Dance could only read what the hand the Wii Remote was doing, and even then the Wii Remote wasn't advanced enough to truly know if you were doing the dance move correctly. Kinect was, and still is in my opinion, the definitive platform for games like Just Dance and Dance Central. That's nice. Well, let's move on from Kinect launch titles to Kinect Star Wars was supposed to be one of the Kinect's killer apps, I guess. They originally showed off a brief clip of it at E3 2010, and it's 9 years later and I'm still underwhelmed. They showed off more of it at E3 2011, and based on this footage, you'd expect Kinect Star Wars to be just a full-blown game of just it. No, it's pretty much a minigame collection. This lightsaber adventure whatever mode is pretty short, and to make up for it, they included a pod racing game, a 20-second long game where you destroy a village, dancing, it wouldn't be a Star Wars without dancing. Playing through the main story mode, I would actually do stuff for 10 seconds and then get interrupted by cutscenes constantly. Every time they actually let me do something, they'd rip it away from me. Also, again, it's weird. I feel like the lightsaber fights would feel more natural on the Wii. There, you're holding something in your hands. Here, you're just whipping your arms around. Now, I said one of the games I got with my 360 was U-Star 2. Now, as you can see, I still own U-Star 2, which implies I can't be a fucking pussy. I own U-Star 2. This is one of the most underrated games for the Kinect. I actively wanted a Kinect for this game because the concept was so cool. You have a bunch of scenes from movies and it's fundamentally karaoke. You have to stand in front of the camera and reenact the scenes. Now, of course, you can do whatever you want on the camera, that's up to you, but I always thought this game was pretty neat and I stand by it to this day. And if we're talking Kinect games I actually liked, there's like 3. One of them is definitely Happy Action Theater. There was no point to this game at all. It's more of a toy that just puts you in different environments and situations. You can interact with objects, take fun pictures, it's a cute little diversion. It was a downloadable only game developed by Double Fine, who made a sequel, Kinect Party, and another Kinect game, Sesame Street Once Upon a Monster. Damn it, this is better than Kinect Star Wars. For what this game is, it's actually pretty good. For a young child, just being able to wave your arms around and for the game to actually read your movements and play really simple minigames, this works incredibly well, and I can tell this is actually a really good game for kids. That leads us to Kinect Disneyland Adventures, a game also directed at children. Look at this presentation from E3 2011. Children don't lie, look at them, they're having fun. This is an open world recreation of Disneyland. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to make an open world Kinect game? There are a few other Disney themed Kinect titles, one of them being Kinect Rush, focusing on Pixar movies. Honestly, a pretty high quality title. I said high quality, not good. You explore all these different worlds based on Pixar movies, but nothing really screams Kinect about this one. It's almost like they took a regular game and just forced you to use Kinect to control it. In fact, just a few years ago, they re-released Kinect Rush and Disneyland as Xbox One games with no Kinect support at all. That brings us to games that really shouldn't have required Kinect, but did the deed anyways. Kinect was home to a very few amount of core titles, one of them being Rise of Nightmares. I always assumed this was a part of the Condemned series of games, but like, I'm gonna look that up. It's a standard first-person horror game, but you have full control of your environment. You have to tilt your shoulders to turn and place one foot forward to move. You have to go into a fighting stance to start punching, and Jesus Christ, no thank you. This feels like they were working on a standard first-person horror game and then made it Kinect only later on. It has an auto move option, but you have to constantly select it and it resets after every cutscene. Now, there could be an option to keep auto move on at all times, but I stopped playing this game already. Nothing was compelling. The controls weren't fun. I'm over it. Hopefully the other major M-rated Kinect title will be better. Steel Battalion Heavy Armor. This was one of the few Kinect titles to use the Kinect sensor as well as the controller. Steel Battalion was a chunk on the original Xbox. It came with this giant accessory that replicated an actual mech. Now with the Kinect, you don't need that giant piece of shit. You have this smaller piece of shit. All these controls are now on screen, and because of that, our view of what's going on outside is about 20% of the screen real estate. You still use the controller to do stuff like shoot, but you have to select all these doodads with your hand, and sometimes if I rest my elbows on my knees, since, you know, I'm holding a controller, the Kinect stopped recognizing me, so I had to play like this. This is garbage.
That's the self-destruct. If we have to bail on the battlefield, we'll want to destroy the beat before it falls into enemy hands.
Whoa, hey, so you go that far? It ain't funny no more, partner.
Jeez, Parker said, put your fucking hands down.
Most of the other Kinect titles were alternate reality versions of Wii shovelware. We had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which required Kinect for some ungodly reason, and for an even ungodlier reason, it doesn't control well. They couldn't get a trivia game to control well. Minute to Win It, Wipeout, sports minigame collections, Fruit Ninja Kinect was originally what sold me on Kinect. That was a fun little time. Microsoft supported it with a few other titles like Fable the Journey and the Gunstringer. There was a fair amount of support for the Kinect. People just didn't really fall in love with the concept. It was cool at first, but the novelty died down incredibly quickly. Sure, it read your movements alright, but it took way longer to get through menus and play games and calibrate the thing compared to most of the casual stuff on the Wii. I never hated the Kinect. I felt like I went along with the mob a little too much sometimes whenever I would say, yeah, the Kinect, who likes that thing? I had some fun with it. I didn't have enough fun to keep playing it. I'm not that sad that Kinect games stopped getting made, but we are missing out on those sweet E3 press conference moments. But I do think there were a handful, albeit very few, good experiences with Kinect, including the fact that developers use it in legitimately much more interesting and good ways in real-world situations. But the games, yeah, a lot of them didn't feel like the developers had a great understanding of how to utilize the Kinect well. It would be too slow to finally get into a game. 90% of them were just kind of knockoffs of Wii stuff. But thank God Project Milo never came out. With AI that crazy, the world isn't ready to be overrun by sex bots.